An American soldier returns to Vietnam after 40 years to fulfill a promise to a 9-year-old boy. What seemed like an insignificant promise at the time weighed heavily on the soldier's conscience for decades. That soldier is Mr. Phil Seymour, who once served as a sergeant in a company under the 1st Marine Division of the U.S. military. Phil arrived in Vietnam in December 1966. 6 months later, he was stationed on a small island near Hoi An, Da Nang. However, he and his fellow soldiers often ventured into Hoi An. Whenever Phil and his comrades came ashore, the village children would run up, asking for American goods like candy and canned food. The soldiers would usually share a portion of their rations with the kids. Among them was a boy named Cam, whom Phil affectionately called Cam. Unlike the other children, Cam never begged for food. Instead, he brought fruits such as coconuts, bananas, and lemons to trade. Because of this, the American soldiers grew fond of him. One day in June 1967, Cam gifted Phil a bunch of bananas. At that time, Phil was preparing for a 1-week vacation in Thailand. He asked Cam what he would like as a gift when he returned. Cam thought for a moment and pointed to Phil's wristwatch. Phil agreed. As soon as he arrived in Thailand, he bought a new watch and eagerly looked forward to returning. However, the prolonged war prevented Phil from keeping his promise. After returning to the U.S., Phil continued serving in the military for 27 more years. He later earned a master's degree in law and became a lawyer at the Pentagon, eventually serving as the chief prosecutor before retiring in 1995. Phil had a smooth and successful life, with no regrets, except for one. He had never fulfilled his promise to a young boy in a poor Vietnamese village. He believed that Cam had likely forgotten about the watch, but Phil himself could not. To Phil, it was not just about the watch. It was a promise made to a child, a small friend he had once cherished. He kept the watch he had bought for Cam in his backpack, thinking he would never return to Vietnam and that he would carry this regret to his grave. However, in the winter of 2007, Phil's wife, Lynn, informed him that their friends were planning a trip to Southeast Asia, with a stop in Hoi An. She encouraged him to join, as it could be an opportunity to find Cam and fulfill his 40-year-old promise. Although Phil thought the chances of finding Cam were nearly impossible, he still decided to go, bringing the watch with him. His tour guide, Mai Thai, assured Phil that he knew many people in Hoi An and would help him search for Cam. Fortunately, Phil still had a few old photographs of Cam's family. Miraculously, the guide was able to track down Cam's younger brother and contacted him by phone. By then, Cam was a 49-year-old carpenter. When he arrived, he was confused and had no idea what was happening, until the guide explained everything. Cam was stunned. He had never imagined that someone would travel halfway around the world just to see him and deliver a wristwatch. The guide pointed to Phil and asked Cam if he remembered him. Cam replied, "Yes, he used to carry a small dog on his back." The guide then reminded him about the watch. Cam responded, "Yes, I was 9 years old at the time and barely spoke English. I thought there must have been some misunderstanding." Phil and the guide assured Cam that there was no misunderstanding, only a broken promise. Then, Phil handed Cam the watch he had kept for 40 years. Both men were overwhelmed with emotion, embracing each other and crying. "If I had broken a promise to another adult, I might not have felt this burden for so long," Phil admitted. "But I had made a promise to an innocent, kind-hearted child, one who never begged, who always smiled." After 40 years, both men had changed. The 9-year-old boy was now a grandfather with 5 children and many grandchildren. But their bond grew even stronger. Phil and his wife later helped Cam's daughter, Vi, return to school after years of hardship. In 2012, Phil returned to Vietnam to attend Vi's graduation ceremony. They even bought plane tickets for Cam and his wife to travel to Saigon for the first time in their lives. Cam brought along many homemade treats to celebrate with his daughter at her dormitory. Today, Vi has graduated and secured a stable job in Saigon. She remains in close contact with Phil and his wife. This is the story of a promise, a friendship that transcended cultures and time, and the unwavering integrity of a soldier who traveled halfway across the world to honor his word.